Alright, so today we'll be making the Jagdpanzer. The Jagdpanzer was a World War II German tank that was used against the Allies. These tanks were different from normal tanks you might think of because they didn't have a turnable turret. But without a turnable turret, it had more firepower. So anyways, I'll be showing you how to make this tank with just some cardboard and a glue stick. Now, this video was requested by Imic Productions. He was asking a lot on how to make those cool tanks and artillery guns in my D-Day and Army Men videos. One of his comments asked me about how to make this Panzer. But since I already made that tank and I didn't want to make another one for a tutorial, I just decided to make something close enough. I mean, they're both Panzers, right? Jagdpanzer. Well, anyways, I'm gonna shut up because he really needs it for a project and I gotta hurry, so let's get in with the tutorial. So to start off, I got some easy to cut cardboard and I cut out a flat base. Then I cut out two more pieces of cardboard that were the same width to make that angle in the front. Then I cut out another flat piece and just made this weird V thingy shape. This is basically the body of the tank. You can make it any size you want. I glued all the pieces together with some hot glue. As you can see, I was using a reference photo to make sure I got everything right. This tank is especially easy to build because it doesn't have that turning turret. Then I glued the sides of the tank to another piece of cardboard. By gluing on the sides before I cut it, I could just save a lot of time by cutting it while it was glued on. When building the tank, I want the outside layers to be the cardboard side instead of the glossy side. If your cardboard has printing on one side like mine, the printing side will be harder to paint afterwards, so using the cardboard side will be a lot better. Now it was time to make the top of the tank. The top has like a trapezoid shape, so I cut out some trapezoids to match the shape. Then I cut out and glued on the roof. Making the basic shape is pretty easy if you're really good at cutting and gluing. For making the actual gun, I used an old pencil I found in the floor of my school. When my friends see these videos, they're always like, "How the hell did you make a tank with a broken pencil?" This just shows the poorest people can also make these tanks. These mechanical pencils are always great for these tanks. The part that holds lead always has a lot of good shapes. This is why my pencil pouch is just full of broken pencils. Since the pencil is flat and the tank is vertical, to neatly attach the pencil to the tank I needed to use some hot glue, and a lot of it. I just filled the inside of the pencil with hot glue and let it dry. Then I glued it on the tank pointing straight and just rested it on some clay to make it not fall. After that I filled the empty space with hot glue and then let it dry. It comes out with a pretty good shape and it holds up well. Now to make it look more realistic. While making this tank you might accumulate a lot of trash or scraps. Usually I try to recycle these scraps by placing them on the tank. Tanks usually have a bunch of like outer details and weird attachments. You can just glue on a bunch of scraps to make it look less flat and smooth. To get some variation I glued on some cardboard, maybe some broken pencils, some paper. I also use this cool trick where you get a thicker piece of cardboard with some corrugation and just peel it off so you get some weird bumpy texture stuff. This stuff is really good for tank tracks, but it can also be used for design. A little detail here I added was this little opening. A lot of tanks, actually most tanks, have a little opening for the crew inside to see what's outside. So for realism I cut a little hole and just put a little visor over it. Now it was time to move on to the wheels. For the wheels I got some foam that I got from the Dollar Tree. I used foam instead of cardboard because foam was thicker and more round. And if you do use cardboard, like a thick kind of cardboard, there will be holes in between because of the corrugation. So I recommend using some foam. I just cut out some circles and just glued it on. To make sure everything sticked properly, I peeled off this outer paper layer of the foam. I did this because if you glue on the foam with the paper layer still attached, the foam could peel away from the paper, and since the glue is attached to the paper, it'll just fall off. And also, using hot glue on that coarse foam makes it stick better. This is probably the more tedious process because you have to cut out a bunch of wheels. Now it was time to paint the whole entire tank. I painted the whole entire tank with a light tan. Then I dabbed on some darker orangish brown paint to simulate camouflage. The paint I'm using is acrylic paint, which is the best paint for kids and little projects like these. Acrylic paint is cheap and it's really good for projects like these. Now it was time to add the tracks. I did the same thing where I cut out a thick piece of cardboard and just peeled it off. I cut the tracks to the right length and then I painted it a dark brownish black. I attached the tracks after I painted the tank because I didn't want the tracks to be brown. And also it's a lot easier to paint the tracks separate from the tank. In this video I actually painted on the camouflage after I added the tracks, but it's a better idea to paint it on before you do it. After adding the tracks, you're basically done. In my opinion, the tank turned out pretty good. I built this tank to match the scale of my army men, and I plan on using this tank on a future army man stop motion. Although I made mine for the army man scale, you can make your tank as big as you want, but it might be hard to build another turret because pencils only stay one size. Anyways, thank you all for watching and I hope this helped you out. I plan on making a lot more tutorials on how to make tanks and other things, so stay tuned and subscribe.